Hey everyone, I just thought this would be a fun idea for kind of a side video of some kind because I've been enjoying a lot of retro content on YouTube lately. I just thought it would be kind of fun to go through the Super Nintendo games that I have in my collection. And I've kind of thought about this for a while, but I've never really known how to go about it because I don't actually have my games on shelves where it's all clean and neat to be seen by everybody. But I actually have them kind of tucked away in drawers, so it's a little bit awkward, as you can see. They're just kind of in drawers like this, and they're just full of games. It's actually not that convenient, honestly, but it's just something that works for me, and it does save a lot of space because I already have my shelves full of other things. So I'm just going to go through what I have, and before I actually get into the drawers, of course, I do have this accessory, the Super Game Boy, which obviously you use to play Game Boy games on the Super Nintendo, so that's pretty cool. But going through here, I do have to dig out these games. They're just kind of buried in here like this. I have to deal with this every time. I don't really mind it that much, but let's see here. So we have our first stack here. And I'm going to start out with one of my all-time favorites, Super Mario RPG. I actually picked this up from GameStop sometime in the early 2000s, I think kind of early mid, probably 2003 or so, I think. It's actually way too faded on this label to see. I think it has a date on it.
Bad dates.
But I don't know if you can see that. The camera gets really out of focus pretty bad. But anyway, so we have that, and of course Super Metroid. I've pretty much had this for as long as I can remember. I watched my brother play through this game, and it's kind of funny thinking about it because I honestly can't remember a time where I didn't know where to find everything in this game. All because I watched my brother play the game a lot back in the day. So then of course another one I've had for just about as long, Star Fox. Definitely a classic. This is a game that a friend gave to me, Surfer BRG. He actually gave me this game, A Link to the Past, and it's got the nice Player's Choice label. And here's Yoshi's Island. I also picked this up from a GameStop. It doesn't have any sticker on it though. I think this was when they were starting to get rid of their Super Nintendo games because it was probably around 2006 or so, and they were just kind of focusing on the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox games being the retro games, and there just were not as many Super Nintendo games anymore. So it was kind of one of the last games I think I picked up at GameStop. And now here's obviously the standard issue classic Super Mario World. And one of my all-time favorites, one of my other top Mario titles is Super Mario All-Stars. Definitely got a lot of hours out of this. This is actually typically the game that I go to if I don't know what to play, or if I'm just going through my collection. It's just such an easy game to resort to. And this funny little thing, Mario is Missing, which I did not know was an educational game as a kid.
Big brain time.
I just kind of played around with it, trying to explore the different areas of the world, but it wasn't until I bought it later from GameStop that I figured out or learned about it, I think. But now we've got Mario Paint. I do have the mouse for it tucked away somewhere. Pretty fun game, of course, and Kirby Superstar. It's definitely a fun one. Let's see, gotta try not to make too much of a mess here. We've got tons of games, and once again, all these games are all stacked on top of each other. We've got Lion King, a pretty tough game. I still think it's pretty fun. It's just that second level is kind of a showstopper at times, honestly. And here's another all-time favorite. This game has just seen a ridiculous amount of playtime. This label is so faded. I picked this up from a GameStop as well, and yeah, I can't even make out the date anymore.
Bad dates.
It was probably around the same time as Mario RPG, probably 2003 or so.
Arms installation is complete. Good luck.
And Axelay, this is another early favorite of mine. This isn't the original copy I had though. I lost that from a move, so I had to get this on eBay. It was actually boxed, and it was way back in the early 2000s. I think this is the first game I've ever gotten on eBay, so I think that's pretty cool that I still have that, at least. And now, of course, Gradius 3. This is another early favorite of mine that I remember. There's like a handful of games that I remember that were like the earliest games that got me into gaming, and I think Gradius 3 would be one of them. And of course, Super Castlevania 4, very fun. This is a game that a friend of mine introduced me to. It was the friend that gave me that Link to the Past game. And of course, Cybernator. Got this from Game Addicts. I think they ceased to exist. They were in Oceanside. Trying to remember, I think they're called Throwback Games now, at least. But yeah, it still has the sticker label from them. And this is a game I rented in the 90s. Thought was really cool and underrated. And we've got a couple of Strike titles. Desert Strike. I always remember renting this, and of course Jungle Strike from Blockbuster it was. Yeah, so, whoops, already making a mess. Alright, now we've got of course, the Donkey Kong Country trilogy. Definitely classic, you just can't go wrong with these games. Lots of fun. I think my sister got this one for Christmas. So it's kind of technically my sister's. And then this one, oh, whoops. Already got my games all mixed up. Not really looking at my hands, I'm looking at the camera. And I've got this one, Donkey Kong Country 3 from eBay. It's got a little bit of wear on it, but the game works just fine. Now we've got some really good Capcom titles over here. My games aren't totally sorted in a very, like there's not a lot of Capcom, Konami stuff that are all mixed together. They're just mixed up in all different locations. So I do have Street Fighter 2 Turbo. I used to have the original, but I think I lost that from Move, but somehow I still have this one. But that's the better one anyway, so it's the one to have. And of course Mega Man X. Got this at the same time as Mario All-Stars. And yeah, it's got kind of a torn label, I think. I tried to take it off, and of course I failed as a kid. Trying to remove the labels, and here's Mega Man X2. Definitely a gem. It's kind of sad seeing some of these games go up in price, but, you know. And this game evaded me for a very long time. I tried to get this game, Mega Man X3, sometime in the... I think it might have been early 2000s, I guess. I was hunting this game so much. It was only like $70, which, I mean, it was a lot at the time in my mind, but nowadays it's like for hundreds, so it's just kind of crazy. 70 doesn't sound like that much these days. It's just $10 more than the average game. And now here's Mega Man 7, and I got actually these last few, the X2, X3, and 7, sometime around 2012, I think. I tried to get a lot of these games before they went up way too high in price, so I'm really glad to finally have them. And here's Maui Mallard and Cold Shadow. I was always kind of curious about this one. I'd seen it a lot at Blockbuster, but never rented it. This was a very spontaneous game I picked up from the mall in the 90s. Super Buster Brothers. I definitely think this is an underrated game and another favorite of mine. It was just kind of, I was at the mall one day in the 90s. I don't know what year it was, but we were at some store and my dad told me to pick out a game, and I just randomly saw a picture of two kids with guns. Basically what you see on the cover there was on the box, and I just thought, oh, that looks like it would be fun, so I just snatched that instead of any other games that I'd already played that would have been good to pick out. But anyway, so here's Super Off-Road, the Baja, and I actually kind of like this game. It's kind of silly though. Definitely hate running into those ATV racers though. Here's Miss Pac-Man. Definitely enjoy the Pac-Man games. These games are kind of falling over. I think I'll try and nudge them so they're at least sitting up a little bit. Let's see, here's Mickey Mania. It's another one I've rented at least a couple times back then. It was always pretty tough, but I still liked it.
Welcome
Jurassic
to
Park.
Jurassic Park.
Another rental. There's so many games I rented as a kid. It's pretty crazy thinking back on it. And here's the other one, of course, which is Jurassic Park Part 2, The Chaos Continues. I always liked this one a little more. It was a little bit more like Contra, the way I like it. The side-scrolling run-and-gun. And of course you have your 3 Final Fantasy titles. The Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. It's alright. It's kind of like beginner's RPG type game. And then here's Final Fantasy 2. This one definitely has like some torn stickers. This is just how I got it. This was from eBay, probably in the early mid-2000s. And then Final Fantasy 3, which technically is 6, just like 2 is actually 4. This one I got from GameStop as well. It's a little faded. Can't see the dates, but and of course here's another gem, Chrono Trigger. I picked this up from a Game Crazy from Hollywood Video when they used to have those, probably in 2004. I think actually my friend's mother bought this for me because I didn't have my wallet with me at the time, I guess. I just kind of happened to be with my friend or something like that happened. I was just visiting with a friend, and it just so happened that game was there for not too much, and I just she graciously bought it for me and I paid her back. So, and here's Secret of Mana, which I got from eBay around that time as well. And Secret of Evermore, we've had this game for a long time. I think a cousin gave this to us. And of course, here's another RPG. This one I really liked growing up, Illusion of Gaia. Always thought this one was a pretty high quality title. Here's a kind of funny one, Lord of the Rings. This is one that a friend gave to me, Surfer BRG. I feel like this is more my sister's game than it is mine, because I didn't really care too much for this one, but I know my sister's a huge Lord of the Rings fan. Sometimes she kind of plays it, I guess, just almost as a playful curiosity. I don't know if she really likes it that much, but here's Shadowrun. This is another kind of interesting RPG. I watched my brother play this one sometime in the early 90s, so it's another really old title that I remember. So I think that's it for that drawer.
Yep.
Let's see how I'm going to sort through this. I actually have a few Reproduction carts in here as well. And here's one of them. This is one of the most recent games I got. Wild Guns. This is a Reproduction, because obviously this game goes for way too much these days, and I think that window for trying to snatch it is just kind of passed for me. So I don't mind getting Reproduction carts if it's for games that are just kind of out of reach. And here's Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. This is, I used to have a legit copy. This is actually a Reproduction. I bought it with the Wild Guns game because, well, they were pretty cheap and affordable. It was just a little more affordable than getting the real thing. So, and here's Killer Instinct. This is actually my favorite fighting game on the Super Nintendo. It took me a little while to come around to it though, because I just wasn't good at fighting games growing up. They were still kind of fun though. Here's another Reproduction, of course, Aero Fighters. It's just crazy expensive. This game just goes for like $1,000. It's insane. But this Reproduction cart, oh, it's just like $35. So definitely prefer getting games for just playing the games rather than collecting them, you know. So, and here's Mortal Kombat 2. This is legit. It has a Blockbuster label on it, which is pretty cool. Oops, I actually have a stack over here I forgot to go through. This is from the lower drawer, so Super Bomberman 2. This was from GameStop. Yeah, it has a totally faded label. Definitely enjoy that one. It's the first Bomberman game I ever played. I just kind of rented it out of curiosity. Here's Darius Twin. Once again, label. GameStop. Fun space shooter, so. And F-Zero. Good clean label. I can actually see $5 at GameStop back in mid-2000s or so. And of course SimCity, fun little game. Me and my sister actually like playing this one. I think my sister got this for me for Christmas one year. And then Super R-Type. I was always curious about these games for a long time, but didn't get around to playing them until the early 2010s or so. Only thing I don't like about this one is I just kind of wish there were checkpoints halfway through the level.
Disappointed!
Because you have to play the entire level if you die, like at a boss. And of course here's the better R-Type, R-Type 3, Third Lightning. I got this from Game Addicts, but it doesn't have that shiny sticker on it that some of the other games would have, at least the ones that I picked up from there. Of course the red cart and Doom. Fun little game. It's kind of a guilty pleasure. I, of course, prefer playing it on PC. Blackthorn, another game that Surfer BRG gave me. It's kind of interesting, kind of Prince of Persia, but with more guns, which kind of sounds like my thing. Then, of course, Aladdin for the Super Nintendo. Came from Hollywood Video. Again, Surfer BRG gave me that. And Sparkster. Another game that, well, I actually picked this up from eBay, but my friend introduced me to that one, so. Okay, so I actually had to do this video in 2 parts because I had to do something real quick, and I started recording again a little later, but my battery died, so I actually had to wait a little while before I could continue. But one more thing that I wanted to bring up before I get into that next drawer is this Aladdin cart that was given to me by Surfer BRG. He actually gave this to me because he got the Sega Genesis version, and he actually managed to score a bunch of games from Hollywood Video at the time, I think in the early 2000s or so, because they were trying to sell off all their Super Nintendo games for cheap. So he actually scored a bunch of Super Nintendo games, some really good ones too that were pretty rare and expensive now. So I always thought that was pretty cool, so that label on that Aladdin game always kind of reminds me of that. So anyway, got to dive a little deeper into this drawer. Got some good games here, of course. Some more Mickey titles with The Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse. Pretty fun platformer from Capcom. Obviously they've done a lot of really good Disney licensed games. And here's Tetris Attack, which is actually a pretty fun game. I don't have too many Tetris-type games, but I do remember my sister had a game called Pokemon Puzzle League, or Challenge, actually, I think it was, for the Game Boy Color. So it always kind of reminded me of that when I played this one. Let's see, this one is Hyper Zone. It's actually pretty interesting, kind of like space shooter, I guess, in a way, or I'm not really sure what to call it. But it's kind of reminds me of F-Zero if you turned it into like a space shooter, basically. Yes! It was done by HAL Laboratories, which is pretty interesting. Here's a rare game called Ren Saber. I actually really like this game because I really like the Strider type games, and I heard about how this one was greatly inspired from that, at least from what people tell me about it. So, pretty cool game. I definitely think it's one of my favorites. Here's a fun little platformer I think is pretty underrated, Hook. I heard about this one. I think the first time I'd seen it was actually on G4 TV. I think somebody had mentioned it at one point, maybe on Filter. I'm not sure. So it took me a while, but I eventually checked it out and thought it was pretty cool. So here's UN Squadron by Capcom. It's a pretty fun shoot-'em-up type game. It's pretty tough though, and I do think it's interesting. This one was introduced to me from my friend who gave me that Aladdin game, so he's introduced me to a lot of really cool games. And so let's take a look here. Hopefully these don't tumble over too badly. Got another puzzle game, Wario's Woods. This was something I played at a friend's house, a different friend. Pretty interesting puzzle game. Not really sure how I would describe it, but it is pretty fun. You just have to check it out. And here's a quirky little game, Stunt Race FX. It uses the Super FX chip. Similar to Star Fox, it's a little bit janky in its controls and play, or frame rate, I guess you could say. But it's pretty interesting, and it's not too expensive, so... And here's another rare gem. This one is obviously very beat up. It's yellowed, it's got tear marks on it, and on the label as well. But at the time when I found this, it actually wasn't too expensive. It was definitely up there if it was in good condition, but since this was very poor condition, I didn't have to pay too much for it, so... figured that was going to be my one chance to be able to own that title. So here we've got another one with some poor condition, you know, writing on it and torn label, Castlevania, Dracula X. This is another one that, it's a pretty interesting title. It definitely goes for a lot more these days than when I bought this, but this one wasn't as expensive because it was in kind of poor condition, but it still works, so that's all that counts to me. And another expensive title once again, Ninja Gaiden Trilogy. I do really like this, despite the inability to change the control scheme, because I do prefer that you would have the Y and B buttons for attacking, but you just kind of have to stick with the B and A buttons. But it does have a password system, and I do think it's nice to have it all in one cartridge like this, because I don't actually have the NES games. So, here we get a little bit more.
Oh, big shot!
So here's an interesting RPG, Lufia 2. This was introduced to me by my friend Surfer BRG. Pretty fun game, definitely unique. I do need to take a deeper dive into this one and play it more in depth. I got this one from Game Addict, so it still has the sticker on it, so this was bought in Oceanside. And of course the classic beat 'em up, Turtles in Time. Definitely a classic game. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that about every game at this point. Pretty redundant. Obviously the Super Nintendo has tons of classic games, and this is obviously one of those top titles a lot of people remember. And right away here's another Konami arcade classic. And yeah, I remember this one, Sunset Riders. I really enjoy playing this one with my sister. It kind of has a little bit of faded writing on it, I guess. I think I got this one on eBay or someplace some number of years ago, like a decade ago, so let's get deeper in here. So we've got Knights of the Round from Capcom. Fun kind of beat 'em up style game, but this time you actually have swords and weapons. So it's kind of got that medieval theme to it, so definitely a unique one at that. And some really tough games, Battletoads and Battlemaniacs. I can never get very far at all in this game, so definitely lives up to the Battletoads name. And then of course Battletoads and Double Dragon, which kind of same thing, I can never get too far, but it's fun and it's interesting. Definitely has its place, you know, like all these old games do, their difficulty. And yet another kind of beat 'em up title, Batman Returns, this time from Konami. Pretty cool, but definitely feel that Turtles in Time is one of the best when it comes to the side-scrolling beat 'em up titles, of course. Now here's an interesting action RPG, Soul Blazer. I was actually kind of lukewarm on this game early on when I first played it, or actually I watched my friend play it, Surfer BRG. He actually has this game, and I think over time I started to warm up to it when I kind of looked at it more from like a Zelda perspective, because I started getting into the more classic Zelda games years later. So I feel like there are some parts of this game that may get a little bit repetitive, but it's still pretty solid, I would say, for the most part. I think it's pretty cool. And there's some titles over here just kind of tipping over. I think it's like the last few titles that are standing on top of the other games. Of course, we've got Super Turrican. Pretty fun, sort of, I guess you would say it's like Contra and Metroid a little bit. Sort of got the exploratory elements of Metroid, but it's got the stage format, you know, and run and gun aspect of Contra. So definitely interesting, and something that I didn't play until like the early 2010s. So, and yet another rare title. Of course, it's really torn at the top. It's just missing that entire top label, but still mostly, you know, I mean, as long as the game works, I'm fine with it. So this is Super Turrican 2. This is a very, very cool action game. Definitely something that I feel I wish had gotten out there much more. And I do kind of wonder whether it's been released on the Switch or not. I think there was a Turrican compilation that was put out, but I think it might be missing from that. So, and here's one of my all-time favorite games besides Contra 3 and probably some other titles. Hagane, I guess is how you pronounce it, which is a Japanese word that means steel. So this is another kind of Strider type game. Some have compared it to the Shinobi series on the Sega Genesis. I definitely really like this game because I was really impressed with all the different modes of attack. You just kind of have these different combinations. It reminds me a little bit of something like Smash Brothers, how you just have all these different combinations of attacks and things you can use. So I definitely felt it was unique for that aspect. And of course, gotta have Super Mario Kart. Definitely a game I was used to not having. I just was one of those games that kept evading me for some reason. I just kind of rented this game every once in a while, but never had it. So, or you went to a friend's house and you played it there. So I was really glad to get this game, I think around maybe 2007 or so. But yeah, definitely one of those games that it just feels like a must-have on the Super Nintendo, besides Mario World. And actually, I have a couple more Reproduction carts here. So obviously, this is a Reproduction cart, Star Fox 2. This was actually 5 years before it was released on the SNES Classic. I bought this in the summer of 2012. I think it was from, I think it was called Retro Sanctuary. Or I might get that mixed up, Lost Classics, that's what it was. Yeah, I don't know if that site is even around anymore, but so this is before the actual finalized version was put out. But I got this one. And the other last Reproduction cart I have for the Super Nintendo, Terra Enigma, definitely an underrated RPG classic. It's an action RPG, kind of like Illusion of Gaia. It's actually more of a continuation of that. So if you like the Zelda type action RPG, or action adventure, I guess I should say, because some people don't really consider Zelda RPG. Whatever it is, it's kind of along those lines. So it's pretty fun either way. And of course, gotta love Earthworm Jim. Very fun game. This was maybe the second game I ever got on eBay. It was boxed too, so sadly I don't have the boxes anymore for any of my Super Nintendo games. They just kind of deteriorated or were thrown out randomly. And then of course I have the second one, Earthworm Jim 2. This one my brother got me for Christmas, I think in 1997 or so. Yeah, I still have that at least, even despite losing some other games between moves. There's not too many left here. Let's see here. Got Toy Story. I actually felt like I started to warm up to this game over time. I think I was just, you know, as a kid, I always had such a hard time with it, so I could never get that far. So I felt like I just wasn't really giving it the time of day until later. I started getting a little bit better at it and getting further. And here's LJN type game, Spider-Man and X-Men. Very tough game once again. I actually like the first level. This is one of those games where it's like, I'll play the first level and then I'll just kind of stop because I just know I'm going to get destroyed if I try to go any further than that. And then of course Midway, Arcade's Greatest Hits, just some good Atari type games. Pretty fun. I think if you just want to check something out in a very retro kind of way. And then another Mickey Mouse game, The Great Circus Mystery. I didn't know about this one until I just kind of randomly came across it, I think at a game store that was selling two they were selling games like buy two, get one free. So this is one of those games I got for free. Definitely a fun title. Oh, there's, I think, a game missing here, actually. Oh, okay. I accidentally covered up one of the games I meant to show earlier. Goof Troop. So this is also, you know, it's actually not exactly a platformer. It's actually kind of more top-down view, puzzle solving. I actually think this game is very underrated. It's a very fun game to play 2 players, and me and my sister really enjoy playing this one, so I highly recommend checking that one out. And then, of course, ActRaiser. This one, I sometimes have mixed feelings about. I feel like there are times where I just have to really be in the headspace to play it, between the platforming action and the kind of the SimCity type, you know, managing a city and all that. It's definitely unique, I will say that, so I can definitely understand people who really enjoy it, but I definitely feel like I have to really be in the mood to play it. But it's still definitely a very interesting and unique title. And for these last ones, Indiana Jones, definitely a tough game. I can never get too far in this one, but I could stand to give it a little more time as well. And then, of course, we've got these 3 here, the Super Star Wars trilogy, which, once again, you know, all of these being kind of LucasArts titles, they're all very tough. So it's Super Star Wars, Super Empire Strikes Back, and then, of course, Super Return of the Jedi. I do think maybe this one might be the easiest out of the 3, and then this one the hardest, which is kind of unfortunate because Empire Strikes Back is one of my favorite movies, but I just get destroyed every time I try to make attempts on this one. But I can get a little ways through this one before I just kind of run out of continues or whatever else happens, you know, the good stuff. And for our very last Super Nintendo game, Super Ghosts and Goblins, or Super Ghouls and Ghosts, I guess. But yeah, this one, once again, very tough. Very fun, though. I actually feel like this is the kind of tough where even though I get destroyed playing this one, it just keeps making me want to come back and play it again and just try to do better. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my Super Nintendo games. I think that's, yeah, well, I've already shown all the rest of these. Of course, I had to break this up into 2 parts, but I'll try to put them all together in one video. But hopefully that was enjoyable, and I'll see if there's any other kind of ideas I have for my channel that I can put up.
Like that's ever gonna happen.
But until then, I'll see you guys next time. Take care.